Alright. That's enough for me. You think Dad getting Ulamog is funny? You think it's funny? Rest in pepperonis. I will be right back. I'm going to run and make him a bottle really quick. Thanks for hanging out this afternoon, folks. Yep, I'll file for comp. That was 2 leagues ago. Back a match. Alright. I'm actually going to go ahead and call it a day with Magic Online. I'm going to play Hex for an hour or two, but if you're here for the Magic, I appreciate you guys. Big thanks to all the followers. I saw Pikachu running in the background there, so I really appreciate that. Thanks as always to all the subs that support the channel. If you want to check out Hex, feel free to hang around. Going to play some Constructed on that. Hex is free to play. Yep. It's very similar to Magic. This is actually the game that they just settled their lawsuit for being too similar to Magic. So. Yep. Magic is definitely an expensive hobby. Hex has a PvE campaign where you can play against AI with your decks and like kind of grind your way into cards, and then you can also just. I'm not sponsored in any way by Hex. A friend of mine was playing it and showed me the game, and it seemed neat, so I threw a couple of dollars at it. I built one of the cheaper constructed decks for like $40. If I was sponsored by Hex, they'd probably want me to like play the PvE, which is what they've been working on for the last while. I mostly just been playing the constructed because playing against computers hasn't been very entertaining. Expensive unless you play a non. I've never played Poxnor. I'm not sure what that is. Gauntlet's being slow to fire this afternoon. Let's try a different cue. They just launched the PvE component of this, so the constructed's been a little bit slower to fire because a lot of people have just been playing the campaign, essentially. It's kind of got like an RPG element to it. My wife's been playing that. She's enjoyed it a bit. But they're having their first $100,000 tournament, which is kind of sweet. It's like a 12-player thing. It's like better EV than the PC, which is kind of sickening. Yeah, Sword of the Meek's a fine unban. And Sword of the Meek might make something like Tezerater playable, like it adds an extra source of card advantage that the deck doesn't have. This hand's super reasonable. Got a cantrip on one. Start of the game, each champion chooses target action in their hand. When you play this, copy it. Okay, sweet. So I'll copy this Oracle song. It's basically divination. So on the draw. Play a blue resource, cast a cantrip. Grab a time ripple. So some of the mechanics for the Magic players in the room that are neat in this game, it does things that like are hard to keep track of or impossible to keep track of in Magic. So like this is basically a boomerang. It returns target permanent to its owner's hand, but it makes that card cost more resources next time they play it, and you can keep boomeranging things back to your opponent's hand, and they keep costing more mana every time. So we're going to play a resource here, and then both players have a champion that gets an ability. What does this do? Put target action from your discard pile into your hand. Sure. So basically you play these things called shards as resources that are similar to lands, and then your cards have a casting cost in the upper left-hand corner, as well as how much threshold you need to have to play this card. So this card costs me 2, and I have to have at least 1 blue threshold to cast it. This card also costs 2, but I have to have 2 green threshold to cast it. So right now, you can see at the bottom of my screen, I have 2 resources total with only 2 blue threshold. This card's actually very good against me when it comes into play. I have to discard a card. So troops are the equivalent of creatures. They have power and toughness. So like this is a 1/1 with flying, and you can pay for and tap it to create a... And there's other things that are like random that can't feasibly do. So like this creates a random sapphire card that exists in the game and puts it into his hand when he activates it. So I have to discard. I'm gonna bin my extra Oracle Song since this one's gonna get doubled. So now I'm gonna use Time Ripple and return this guy to his hand, and the next time he casts it, it's gonna make him cost 2 instead of 1. End turn. Now this is a dual shard. It's kind of like a dual land. It effectively comes into play tapped. It gives me my choice between my 2 resources, so it makes a green resource, which is called Wild, but then it doesn't give me an energy to use this turn. My champion power is kind of cool. It lets me cycle 2 cards from my discard pile back into my deck, and it adds a line of text to this card, making it draw a card. So the next time I draw those 2 cards, I put them into my deck, they'll draw a card when I play them. You have steps and phases and priority passes back and forth. So a lot of people ask me why I'm playing this instead of something like Hearthstone, which is a little bit more popular. And the reason for this is like it actually uses, there's effectively a stack. So this is a card that costs 2 now. That's why it has, its number is red in the corner. And I'm going to bounce it again, and next time it's going to cost him 3 to play it. And you just keep increasing his cost like that. So I've got 5 cards. This is going to double itself when I play it. So we're going to play it and draw 4. Hopefully we'll hit a resource in there. Alright, we hit a resource, but it's one of the ones that basically comes into play tapped. So we'll get another wild resource, because now I have 2 green. Now I have 2 green threshold and 2 blue threshold. And actually I can shuffle 2 cards back into my deck again. And like this champion's ability is sweet because it lets you play a deck that like traditionally is just like unplayable in Modern Magic, because it lets you like build up unstoppable card advantage as you prolong the game. Oracle Song is essentially divination. Yep. So one of the things that's interesting about the mana system in this game that is neat. So I have 4 resources total with 2 Sapphire and 2 Wild right now. And even though this card costs double green, I can play both of these cards that cost double green from my hand. So I can play this one, and when he comes into play, he fights a creature. So I'm basically playing a blue-green control deck, but the green creatures in this game get to fight things when they come into play, so green's effectively removal spells, which is sweet. And now, even though I already played something that costs 2 green, and I only have 2 green threshold, I can play another card that costs 2 green threshold because I meet the threshold requirement for all of these, and I met the total resource requirement to play both. Divination is constructed playable. Yep. So we play Sapper's Charge, and this is an artifact that costs 1, and we can sack it to deal 2 damage to something, so just more colorless removal for my control deck that doesn't have blood shards in it, which blood is basically black, it has hard removal. Yeah, I've liked this game a lot. Like I said, one of my buddies came over and was just, what does this do? Put 1 card of target opponent's champion's deck into your hand. Wow, that's really good. So he gets to take cards out of my deck and put them into his hand, and then he's able to cast them. It's kind of Pyrite Spellbomb. Pyrite Spellbomb costs red resources to activate. This is completely colorless. So I'm going to start by casting Oracle Song or Divination for the Magic players, draw 2 cards. And then I'm going to cast Arcane Focus, which is basically sleight of hand to look at the top 2 and grab 1. I'm going to grab a Sapphire Shard here and play that. This creature is really sweet. This is like my Control Deck's finisher. It's a 7-cost creature that's 8/8, and some of the cards in Hex have things called sockets. So I get to choose 2 extra abilities during deck building that this card has, and I've given it Spell Shield, which is